Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is another little garden update. So right now, I'm standing in a patch of star thistle, also known as spotted knapweed. It's an invasive species, and in some places it's really a problem. I think Minnesota, Wisconsin, there's like hundreds, maybe thousands of acres that have been taken over by this stuff. It's not quite so bad here. Anyway, it's in flower, not quite peak flower, but getting there right now. And all kinds of pollinators on this stuff. Lots of honeybees, but other pollinators as well. So when this stuff came into bloom, I put my supers on top of my honeybee hives to try to take advantage of this event. So now we're over to the raised beds. This bed here still has onions in it. They're cipollini onions. They're a little bit different than your standard onion. They're kind of short and flat, and they're used in certain Italian recipes. I'm not saying they're a gourmet onion, but there are certain recipes that call for them, and we really want to try them out. So these are started from seed. All I did is spread the seed on the surface of this bed and cover it with potting mix just so it would stay moist and keep the light off of it and cause the seed to germinate. So they basically are growing in the spots where the random seeds fell. That's why they're kind of spaced all wonky, and some of them are too close together. But for the effort that I put into it, it's actually a very good result. And I can see that I'm going to have some nice cipollini Italian onions to test. This bed over here used to have garlic in it. All I did is harvest the garlic, make little depressions inside the squares marked by the cattle panel, sprinkle my cucumber seeds down on there, and cover it with potting mix, pretty much the same way I did the onions. So it's kind of like a little cheat. If you want to get your seeds up and your soil isn't good, just spread them at the proper depth, then cover them up to that depth with the potting mix, and they should come up for you real good. So this is where we're doing the curing of our onions and of our garlic. All this is just a frame with hardware cloth tacked into it. Basically, it's a sifter, but I'm repurposing it for curing garlic and onions. So let me put this coffee down. These are the candy onions. You get an idea for the size of them. What we're trying to do is get them down to a moisture content where when they're in proximity with each other, they won't cause each other to rot out. That's the goal. And here's our music garlic. I believe this was released by MSU, developed there. And just to quick show people something. That's what we use as a honey super. It's called a shallow super. These are kind of different because they don't have any wire. So typically you would put this in a honeybee hive, and then the bees would fill in the super, and then you cut the caps off, and then you put it in an extractor and spin it out. That's not quite how I do it. I don't like to reuse my frames. I like fresh foundation for every batch of honey that I consume and that I give to my friends. So just something to think about. So some of you may remember this bed from previous videos. Here's what it looks like now. So on this side, there was cardboard in the last video that was not covered with sawdust. And over here, this side was done, but it has paper underneath. Anyway, all this bed is an area of grass that was mowed really tight and then had cardboard or garden paper added on top of that. After that was done, the sleeves were set, filled with potting mix, and the plants were planted into them. And then in between the rows, you spread sawdust. It looks like a lot of work, but once you get it down, it stays clean. You don't have to go in and weed it all the time. So this side had the cardboard. The only place you see weeds is around the edges. This side had the garden paper. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it didn't block the weeds nearly as well. However, this was done later, so that's also a factor, but I think cardboard is the way to go. That's probably how I'm going to do it next year. So there it is, simple and stripped down. Plants look like they're doing really well. Got Greek pepperoncini, Ozark giant bell pepper, bride eggplant, Italian pepperoncini on the end. All of those look like they're in the process of producing fruit. We'll be able to harvest from all those different plants, different types anyway, within a week or two. The viney stuff, it's going to take a while, but it's doing very well in this scenario. And over here is the tomato garden. So you can see the tomatoes, they're developing on a lot of these plants. I could go into the varieties, but I won't do all that again today. The one that's turning, that's coming on, that's a mortgage lifter. That'll be the first of our large heirloom tomatoes to come on. On the far end, we have Early Girl. We'll be picking some of them tonight. They're a nice tomato. We bought them so we could have early tomatoes, and they're not quite so big and nice as some of these other ones, but we're having tomatoes on July 27th. These are paste tomatoes. They're opalcas. Down on that end, we have Windsall, the potato leafed tomato. These four are looking really good here. Omar's Lebanese. Down on the end, we've got some yellow pear. The ones that I'm the most happy with are the Canestrano de Luca. So that's this entire row and also these three. So I'm going to get inside this garden so you can get an idea of the scale. So here I am. I'm 6'3". They're in pots. The pots are like 15, 18 inches high. And they're just taking right off. They've got a lot of really nice tomatoes starting to come on. The more I grow of them, the Canestrano de Luca, the more I like them. They really truly are a superior variety. I mean, even above and beyond some of your standard heirlooms, they seem more vigorous, more disease-free, and they produce a great tomato. And down here, the other viney stuff is doing well, growing under the same scenario. Right here, this is my irrigation tank. I just set this up. There's still a couple little bugs to work out. I think it worked for the first couple of days, and then my screens got clogged because it should be working now, and it's not. But it got me through a few days when I wasn't here, and I'll figure out what's wrong with it and get it going. It's probably just dirt from this old tank clogging the screen. But anyway, that is your late July, July 27th tomato garden update. And that's how we're growing them out here in Claybanks.